All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be looking at how the aggregate supply curve shifts to the left or right with changes in factor of production. Okay, so when it comes to changes in factors of production, we're talking about cost of raw materials, minerals, okay, so on and so forth. All right, so if we were to draw our supply curve, okay, let's assume that this is your price level over here. Okay, this is your real GDP. All right. And our supply curve, okay, will be something like this. Okay, with an upward slope. All right. Now we know that this is your potential GDP over here, the vertical line. Okay, so this is your potential GDP. Okay, and we also know that you have aggregate demand at some point. Okay, and we know the aggregate demand, okay, goes up as the price level falls. Okay, so we know that this is your aggregate demand. All right, now based on factors of production, let's say cost of raw materials, okay, the aggregate supply curve will either shift to the right or left. All right, so we know that if the aggregate supply curve shifts to the left, okay, this would be because the cost of materials, the cost of input of production may have gone up. Okay, as a result of which, if the cost of materials go up, okay, obviously it will be more expensive to produce, as a result of which the supply will be reduced, okay, and the real GDP will be reduced, okay, because if the supply is reduced, okay, you have economic contraction, and because you have economic contraction, the real GDP will go down as well, all right, so at this point, for example, okay, you have your real GDP as G1. All right. And at this point, this is your equilibrium. This is your demand. Okay. And these are your supply curves over here. So you have S0 and you have S1. All right. As we know, okay, as the supply curve shifts from S0 to S1, okay, you will have a new equilibrium point over here. And this equilibrium point will be your new equilibrium point. Okay. With G2. Okay, this is your GDP, new GDP, which will be less than your original GDP at this point. And this will be your price level. Okay, and this price level will be lower than the price level at this particular point. All right, now, if for some reason, if the cost of production, let's say raw material, let's say crude oil, okay, price of gasoline, okay, were to go up, okay, the supply curve, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the left. If we were to go down, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, basically means that your aggregate supply goes up, okay, with a reduction in cost of production. All right, which means the supplier is able to supply more. And because the supplier is able to supply more, you have a new equilibrium point over here where supply meets demand. Okay, and we also know that at this point, okay, you will have your GDP, which is more than G1 and G2. So this will be a G3, for example. All right, so this is G3. And at this point, you also have your price levels. Okay, so your price levels will be P3. So let's say this is P3. Now, from what we know about productive efficiency, okay, because this is your potential GDP over here, okay, should the cost of production go down, it's possible that the supplier may end up supplying more, okay, more than the potential GDP. Why? Because obviously you're producing at full maximum capacity, but if the cost of production goes down, okay, the supplier will have a tendency to produce even more, which means you have more workers working overtime. Okay, you have more production. Okay, you have machines working 24/7, for example, so on and so forth. So because of that, okay, if the supplier is producing more, okay, you have your surplus over here, okay, just outside your potential GDP. And this surplus, okay, this is basically productive inefficiency, okay, because at this point, the supplier is, okay, using his or her resources and access, okay, which means there is a chance that the machine will break down. There is a chance that the workers will leave, okay, as a result of which, okay, it may interrupt the business altogether and the cost of production may go up. All right. So that will be it for this video. On behalf of Electronics, this is Ubate. Have yourself a great day.